on YouTube. This is a live show. Whoa, it's beeping on me. This is a live show that will be highlighting or spotlighting woodworkers out there in the woodworking community like Derek, who do some pretty amazing artistry and woodworking. And real basic format for today, we're going to try and keep it down to about 35-40 minutes. For the first 15 minutes or so, I'm going to ask Derek some questions. And just before the questions end, I will open up the floor to Q&A, so you'll be able to ask questions. And once I'm done asking Derek questions, we'll go to the questions that you guys pose and see what Derek has to say. So thanks for joining us today, Derek. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Izzy, for having me. This is it's awesome.
Well, it's awesome that you're here. Your work is absolutely incredible. It just blew me away the first time I saw it. I think what I'd like to do, Derek, is maybe start by talking a little bit about your background, you know, kind of how you got involved in woodworking and where you come from and that sort of thing.
Sure. Well, so I grew up in a little honeypot of like woodworking, wood turning kind of people. I grew up in little like carving shows, and I was just kind of immersed in it from like a kid. Now, I never had any interest in it. I wanted to be like a comic book artist, but my dad was like a pretty serious hobbyist decoy carver. So like I grew up in a wood shop. I eventually, at maybe around 21, I decided I might want to try my hand at sculpture. I started kind of poking around the wood shop and picked up a lathe, picked up trying to lathe out, and just kind of fell in love with the process.
That's awesome. So you've been woodworking your whole life, you'd say, or since you could?
Sort of. Like I said, I poked around a little bit as a kid, and that was always around me. I didn't have any sincere interest in it, and it wasn't the way I wanted to express myself until about 21. Then I got very interested in it.
How would you say you discovered your talent for what you're like your off-axis turning, what you're doing today?
Well, when I first started, I was not a good turner and I was not a good carver. And I thought that if I carved on turnings or turned on carvings, you know, I could kind of like cheat a little bit and make a passable piece.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, like a little bit of a voice started developing by making work that way. Like it was standing my work out. So then I started thinking, it was just a random little thought very early on in my career as an artist. What would it be, or what would it look like, or what would it mean if I made a piece that you couldn't tell where the turning stopped and the carving started, or vice versa? And you know, maybe 10 years on, I mean, that's where my work is. Like it's almost entirely turned. I mean, there's some carving on it, like a little bit of a skin sometimes, but you know, basically my work is defined by the circular cuts of a wood lathe. And
that's cool.
Yeah.
We had a chance to talk a little bit before. Now, you said you had a chance to study with somebody else prior to you getting into a lot of the serious off-axis turning?
You know what? Yes, there have been some major influences on me as a lathe artist. Obviously, my dad being a decoy carver, and you know that was a very early influence, obviously. And then there's a local turner that just taught many people for free. It was just a passion of his. He was Dave Hardy, who was just why there were so many turners in our area, because of his generosity. And then Mark Safiri, he was a very early pioneer of off-axis turning, and an amazing furniture maker, wood turner, printmaker. I mean, he's done it all, as well as being a professor at a college that was right by me. So he saw my work and he's like, "Hey, you should take some classes here." And I had been a philosophy major prior to that, and I decided that, you know, I wanted to get my hands dirty. So, you know, a wood program sounded pretty good at the time. So I went and took some classes, and I don't know, he really helped continue my understanding of using the lathe as a carving machine, and encouraged me and opened doors for me to, you know, to push my work even further.
Well, that's pretty incredible. Now, one of the things that you do now is teach. Is that correct? You do some teaching. You teach people how to do your off-axis turning and how to kind of create some of those forms that you're creating with a lathe.
Yes, not like at like a accredited school, but like craft schools I'm teaching at, and lots of demos like all over the country. Like I'll do demos or hands-on workshops, um, and really my interest is not for people to come and take my class and go home with something that they can have. They can do that, but my interest is to teach the way I think, so people can learn and take my knowledge and take it further. Because my interest is really sharing this process, because there's not really many other people doing it, if any.
None that I know of. So, when you do your classes, do you have information available on your website if someone was interested in coming to one of your demonstrations or one of your classes?
Well, a lot of times they're like handled by clubs that will like contact me, or I'll contact them if I'm kind of in that area.
Mm-hmm.
But now one school, a craft school that I'm teaching at this summer is Anderson Ranch, which is in Colorado, and I'm sure that it has not filled up yet, and if anyone's interested in a week-long class and taking a class from me for a week, it gives people the opportunity to really digest and start exploring my processes.
Well, my friend Steve Fish, he's the one that kind of turned me on to you when you came down to James Island and did that show over at Harwood Studio.
Sure.
Yeah, and I've been to a lot of demonstrations in my time, Derek, but I've never walked into one where somebody just came in and said, "Okay, what are we going to do today?" I mean, every demonstration I've ever been to, they had everything formatted, it was planned, they knew what was going to happen before it even started. You didn't have a clue. You walked in and asked somebody to pick an animal that you're going to turn. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what is this guy doing? I think what I really enjoyed about it is you got the whiteboard out, and through each process you kind of drew, what parts you were trying to remove, and then you demonstrated on how you were remove it. What inspired you to start doing demonstrations like that? Because that's got to be a little nerve-wracking, because you just don't have any idea how the finished product is gonna come out.
Well, I would attribute, I would say I'm a knucklehead first and foremost, and a risk taker on top of that. So I was asked to do a demonstration for this like national symposium, and I'm thinking, I'm like, gosh, I'm just kind of making my bones in the wood field, and I'm trying to figure out like what it is, how am I going to demonstrate what I do. And I thought, well, maybe I'll do this or that, and I came up with a few things, and I thought, what, why don't I really show exactly how fluid I am with this process, and just leave it up to the audience. I want to prove that I'm not planning this out. Like, this isn't like I can draw with the machine. And so I wanted to show that, and I felt that the best way is just to leave it up to the audience and trust myself to make it work. And now I haven't always done it. I mean, some of the first ones I did, and I always tell this story, and I kind of have as a caveat in the beginning of my demo, is that the first demo I did, these people asked for a horse, and so I'm turning this horse, and I mean it's just a pig. Like it didn't matter what I did, it was just a pig. So I told him, I'm like, I'm really sorry. I wanted to make this a horse, but this is a pig. I'm sure you've never seen a turned pig, and it's pretty charming as is. So I don't know. It's just
So it turned out however it was going to turn out.
Yeah.
I got to tell that story. We're all sitting in her studio, and there's birds flying around in there. So and Ashley comes up and introduces you, and you're talking and doing this little brief, and there's these little, I don't even know what they were, little chickadees or wrens flying around.
Wrens.
Yeah, wrens. I think you're right. And so then you ask, well, what animal should I turn? And of course, Steve pipes up, let's turn a bird. So that's how that turned out. Now, some of the textures that and I know people have seen the video that I put up of your work, which is, I mean, absolutely beautiful, incredible work. But what they don't really they don't get that tactile feel. You can't, like we got at the demonstration where you actually pick these things up. And the piece that stuck out to me was you turned, it looked like a Cape Buffalo. It had the curled over horns.
Sure.
And when I picked that piece up, it just, the whole thing made sense to me. And the textures were perfect. It wasn't this real smooth, like with wood turners where I was looking, or, they're always looking for that really nice smooth finish, get it that glass finish. And with what you're doing, you're looking to actually develop textures in the turning, because those horns felt like real horns. I mean, they had that texture that you would feel if you ran your hand over horns. And how do you achieve that? And what kind of tools are you using when you're doing your turning?
You know, I don't know if it's so much. For one, it's that it's being turned slow, and the other thing is that it's because it's an interrupted cut, and it's just kind of a result of the process. But I know that there are little muscle movements that I'm making that's controlling it a little bit, because it's more intuitive though at this point now than anything. Like I can't put it to words exactly,
Mm-hmm.
but that texture absolutely. I'm more interested now in actually the textures that the lathe can put on a surface than I am in the shapes, actually, because there's just something about fibers getting kind of ripped and mashed and cut circularly the way that it does, that I feel like you can't get via any other machine.
Well, it was absolutely incredible. And I thought when you went for your torch,
My favorite sanding tool.
right, you were actually shaping with the parting tool, I think, and you were creating these little. Was it the parting tool you were using to create those little tears in the
Sure.
fibers?
Yes.
And then,
Yep. Yep.
and
Yep.
and then you went for the torch, and I had one of those aha moments. I was sitting back watching. I was like, aha, that's how he's getting that amazing texture. It was
Yeah.
absolutely gorgeous. Now, one of the things I'd like to talk about a little bit, I think a lot of people out there that watching this they want to develop their skills. They want to get to a point where maybe they can actually make a living at what they're doing, make it a full-time thing. And that's what you're doing. You're out there really developing what you're doing. Now, you just did a sofa. Can you explain what sofa is, and maybe tell us how you got involved with that?
Uh, Now, sofa is it's this. They used to have them all over. There used to be one in like New York and Santa Fe and Chicago primarily. Um, the last like standing one at the moment after the economy took like a shot the way it did is the one in Chicago. Um, but it's this huge art show. The only way you can be there is if you're represented by a gallery that attends it, and booth space for a gallery is. I don't even know if 50,000 will get you a small booth. I mean, it's probably closer to 50 to 100,000 just to have a space there, and it's just for a weekend. So, I mean, the work that sells there is some of the best work you'll see in the world. Um, I've been lucky to have galleries carry me there for a while. Before the gallery that carries me now, which is Riley Galleries, based out of Cleveland. Was Delmano, and that was, and I didn't even realize when I had work at SOFA how young I was. I mean, I think I had work maybe there at 23 maybe, and I mean this is like some of the best work in the world, and I didn't even know, like I didn't know how big of a deal it was. Um, and I'll tell you, if anyone is watching this and they have this little skull piece called Ancestor, and you bought it at SOFA, contact me, because I don't know who has that. um, yeah, so it's a really amazing show, and some of the best artists in the world.
How did you get involved with the galleries?
Um, that gallery, there was kind of a little. There's a certain part of the wood field that I would say that I'm involved in, which is like high-end professional wood turning based sculptors, and mine being a little bit different even than them. But there was generally one gallery that kind of carried all of them, as well as a collector base that went along with it. and they struggled. So Tom Riley, Riley Galleries, they decided to kind of come in and help represent some of these artists in this field that all of a sudden was completely unrepresented. Um, so I was, one of the artists that they identified as kind of a, an important maker in the field at the time, and they started caring and showing my work.
That's very cool. So, Derek, you just started a YouTube channel.
Very much just started.
Right. No, I saw the first video you posted, which was absolutely hilarious because we had an opportunity to talk about you were turning a monkey, I think you said it was, and you had this incredible off-axis swing to it, and it was one of the pieces that had come flying off, oh no, it didn't come flying off, but in this particular case, you posted a short clip of a really serious off-axis turn, and it did come off went right towards the front.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, that would have been lethal. I mean, that thing was scary.
Yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to been standing there. This is actually, your demonstration, Derek, was the first lathe demonstration I've ever seen where there was absolutely nobody sitting in front of the lathe. I mean, it was like both sides, and it was just all the way back. So
yeah, I part the seas,
Right. I am going to try and turn on Q&A now to give people a chance to open it, but it looks like I'm having some trouble. It says Q&A disabled. I don't know if that's something I did at the beginning of the show or not. So I'll mess with it here for a second. So we were talking a little bit earlier about attributing what you attribute your success to. I mean, you quite frankly you're very talented, and you have you've been working your butt off. So we were talking about that briefly. What would you contribute? The success you're having, and the growth that you've had with your woodworking or wood turning.
I would always say, I would say hard work over talent, 9 times out of 10. And then on top of that, the one thing I feel that is extremely important is decision making and like creative decision making. I feel like it's one thing to just work and work and work and work and work and work, but unless you are actually steering it a certain way, I don't feel like it won't get you necessarily to where you want to go. So like identifying a path or paths, and then choosing a path that you feel is the smartest path to work down, and ideally inventing a path and then working hard down the path that you invented, I feel like is the best way to find a success. But I mean, hard work, absolutely.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think I worked in the rustic furniture industry for years and years and years, and it didn't happen overnight. But it was a lot about pounding the pavement and working your butt off to make it all come together. So Derek, I'm having a little trouble with getting the Q&A on, and this is my first time on here, so I'm not quite sure what's going on. So I think if we'll just continue down this road that we're on here, talk about a few more things. And I know one of the questions that people are going to have is color. You get some absolutely incredible colors on your work. How do you do that?
Well, before I used to just use acrylic paints, but I ended up deciding that I really wanted the wood to be kind of forward in my work, and I didn't want to just cover it up. So I started using these alcohol-based markers that Copic makes, COPIC, and supposedly they're color fast. I believe them. I believe that to be the case. But like again, I said that they're alcohol-based, so it just there's no body whatsoever. It just like stains the wood, and you can kind of like blend right on the wood. And because I use like essentially a white timber, which is holly, so it's like parchment, I get very bright like colors with the wood just being wood as well. So it's kind of like a combination of a few things. It's very hard to get holly that big. A few of the people that helped me find holly that's that big for the pieces I make. I say it's like finding a unicorn. Like if I were to call up and ask, I want holly, so and so by like a place that sells lumber. I mean, they'd laugh me off the phone. I mean, it just doesn't exist.
Do you hollow out your forms after you've done turning some of the larger ones anyway? Because I mean, if you're using holly, and I know that you're turning green or greenish,
Right.
are you hollowing out your forms to avoid checking?
Yep. And I use if I can do I'll do what I can on the lathe because that's basically the fastest shaping system I have. But after that, I'll use an Arbortech, which really rips wood out too. But yeah, I hollow it out, and then I'll hollow it out. I'll blowtorch the inside. I'll hollow it out some more. Like I feel like the fire does help dry it, provided that you're not like really baking the piece because that will open cracks up too.
Yeah. Give me just one quick second here, guys. I'm not sure we're going to get this figured out in time. All right, let's just keep going the way we are here, and then I'll have to get this figured. I'll have to figure out what I did wrong. I apologize, Derek. I thought this would be just a point-and-click thing. Apparently, it's not. So
that's fine.
So now you live up in Pennsylvania.
That's right.
Is holly something that's widely available up there?
No, like I said, it's honestly like it's like acquiring unicorn horns. Like the pieces that I want, they're just not out there. But I have like a garage full of really big holly that just I have a few really wonderful people that have good connections that when a big holly tree comes down, I get it.
Well, that's awesome. I used to do the same with yellow birch up where I live. Trying to get your hands on a good yellow birch was very difficult. So when you're doing this, your first time, when was your aha moment? Do you remember having an aha moment when you said, "This is it. This is what I want to do"?
Oh my gosh, hundreds of them. No, but I mean, like I feel like it's so funny because I feel like skill or talent or all of these things are always based on like levels of understanding, and I feel like those are the moments you grow. You can almost feel yourself like leveling up. Like it's just like I don't know. But so as far as being I knew since I was young that I wanted to be an artist. I would say the first few pieces that like I sold, that were like more like pieces of art, like for fair amounts of money. I guess it started becoming a possibility to me. Like it became like a real thing that could happen. So yeah, but beyond that, just hundreds of moments, like hundreds of little moments. It just kind of reaffirmed that this is what I should be doing.
Right. Completely understand that. So you have said before that you do, let's say, 95% of what you do on the lathe. Now, when you're off the lathe, is there particular tools that you use to maybe add some details to the skin, add some little offsets, I guess?
Yeah. Well, so like I said, I would say that my chisel set includes a blowtorch, an Arbortech, an NSK, and like a detail master like burning unit. On top of like I do actually use hand chisels sometimes and rasps, but not. Most of my stuff anymore is you plug it into something to make it work, and not that I feel like that's a superior way of doing it. It's just that happens to be the way I make what I do.
All right.
Yeah.
I know there's some turners out there wondering what your chisel set looks like that you use your turning tools. Do you have a particular 2 or 3 that you grab most of the time, or do you have a whole slew of them?
I am really not a tool guy. So the turning tools that I use, I mean, I have some spindle gouges, pretty steep bevels on them, so they're not too grabby. Yeah, I mean, nothing really fancy. Just varying thicknesses, depending on how fine the detail I want to get, what I'm trying to get at. I like heavier tools in general.
Looks like that you use your turning tools. Oh, sorry, guys. Oh. Sitting here trying to get technical help down below. I'm cheating down here. It's not working so far. So, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Derek.
No, it's fine. But yeah, so I would say nothing. I do like heavier tools because I think with doing the work that I do, you just want something. I mean, I've broken a lot of tools doing what I do because you move it just a little bit too far, and that wood comes around and it just breaks the metal right in half.
Holy cow!
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Snaps the bar.
Yeah.
That's gotta make you jump a little bit when that happens.
Well, again, like I will say, and you mentioned one little epiphany I had, and I don't know if it's necessarily an epiphany. I think I actually got dumber to do it, but doing this work, like I remember one time it was one of the bigger pieces that I was working on a larger lathe. I was in a residency, and I had access to a bigger lathe, so of course I'm going to make more dangerous work. So I'm hooking this piece up, and I mean it's huge, and it's so much weight that's spinning around off axis. And there was another person in the shop, and they looked over to see what I was doing, and they're like, "You can't turn that lathe on." I'm like, I have to. Like I have no choice. Like this is what I have to do. I'm like, take a picture. If I end up in the hospital, we can show them how I got there. Like, and I mean, if I could work on a bigger lathe and do dumber things, I would. Like, it's just I can't. I'm not saying that I would do it in a dumb way. I really try to do it in the smartest way I can. But if my muse is pointing me in a direction, I have to follow it.
Yeah, you're talking to somebody who completely understands that. I do things that would make other people very nervous. So, but if it means getting the job done, that's just it's the risk that has to be taken to complete it. I completely understand that. So, I wonder, have you ever really scared anybody aside from that one instance where they were just really shaken by what you were doing or how you were how far off axis you were turning?
Yes. I mean, I think when I do my demos, a lot of times, like when it looks different than what most people are doing when they demonstrate. Like, and sometimes, I know when I change an axis, like, really severely, like, everyone's like, oh, holy crap, this guy's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
But
I remember.
You go ahead.
I remember when we were at your demonstration, and you were actually using the lathe as a carving tool, but it wasn't turned on. You were putting eyeballs in the bird, and I was sitting here. It was for people who are watching this. I was watching Derek, and here he is. He's holding this chunk of wood between the centers, and he's just hammering that freaking. He's just hammering the tail in there. I'm thinking, what is he doing? And then he goes up, oh, I'm making eyeballs.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really. I don't try to take things too seriously. I like having fun. But what I did want to say though, as when I was turning that piece, the epiphany I had, and I did want to get back to it. It took me a while to build up the nerve to stand in front of the work that I'm making and just deal with it. To approach it, because it is intimidating. Like I started with really small little pieces, and then I built out from that, but. It was a skill as well as guts to do it,
Yeah. What? Oh, I just lost it. What were you thinking the first time you stepped up to something like that? When you said, "All right, I'm just going to do this." I mean, there had to be. I mean, I know for everybody when they do something for the first time, like for when the first time you step up to a table saw, or the first time maybe you're holding a piece too close on the chop box, or those kind of things. You have those moments where you're going, maybe I should be doing this a little differently, or then there's those rare occasions when there's very little way to get away from some of the inherent dangers of what's going on. What was that first do you remember that? Do you remember were you very nervous about it, or was it one of those things where you just had to say, I'm just going to do this and figure it out?
I I really get nervous when I'm making artwork. Not to say that I shouldn't, and I'm not. It's not to say that I'm not a nervous person because I can be nervous about things. But when it comes to artwork, it's just like that's my. I'm very confident when I'm making artwork, and I really trust what I do and what I think is possible and my ability to execute it. But
Well,
yeah, sure, there were times where it was scary.
all right. Well, that puts us at 30 minutes, Derek, and I think what I'd like to do is offer you an opportunity to come back and do an actual Q&A where the audience members can ask questions. And I was really hoping to do that, so I'm a bit disappointed that I didn't figure that out ahead of time. But I think we're going to call it a night for now, and then maybe if you're willing, I'd love to have you come back in a couple of weeks or when you have time to maybe do a Q&A where we can actually answer some questions from the audience. Would you be all right with that?
Yeah, absolutely, sure. It would be my pleasure.
All right. Well, Derek, thank you so much for your time, man. Uh, the term fanboy is I would use loosely, but I really am quite a fan of your work. It's really awesome to see somebody out there that's just so far off what we're seeing, what we're seeing out there. And you're definitely a standalone guy, and some of the work that is coming out of your shop is absolutely incredible. I mean, absolutely stunning. So,
Thank you, Izzy. I
thank you.
really I appreciated your invite to do this, and I'm just happy to be here.
Well, thank you very much. And for everyone listening, we will be doing this again with Derek when you have an opportunity to actually ask some questions, and I'll post that on the main channel. And thank you for watching. So have a good night.